Recording. Here we go. Thanks. Good catch. Okay, quickly, let's look at our remaining few weeks of the semester, which is awesome. I'm ready for it to be done. We will do everybody's KTP presentations on the last day. We'll split it over the last two. So next week is Thanksgiving, obviously no class. Come back and we'll just wrap up this semester. I can answer more questions about the KTP and what your presentation should look like. And then we'll split between the class between the 6th and the 13th. So if anybody really needs to go on a certain night, that first week or that second week, now's the time to speak up or forever hold your peace. If you don't care, I'll randomly assign people.
I would personally love to go on the 6th because I have my stats final the night before the other class.
Okay. Also, let me just make it clear that even though you will go on the 6th, you still have to come to class on the 13th to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Too. I'm sure you weren't like, yeah, skip out on that. But, okay, let me just write people's names down really quick. So that was Claire, and then Abby, I see you want to go on the 6th as well. Does anybody else want to sign up preemptively now?
Can I do the 6th as well because I have the same stats exam?
Sure.
I don't mind going on the 6th.
Who was that? Gina?
Yeah.
Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 people in class. So about roughly 8 and 8, but we do have 4 people who are online asynchronous, and so they may not be able to join in live, so they may have to record their presentation and send it, and we'll watch it in class type of a thing. So if we can get about 8 and 8 scheduled on each day. So we need 4 more for the 6th and then 8 on the 13th. Anybody?
I can do the 13th.
Okay, Haley. Next.
It doesn't matter to me. I can go either way.
Pick a day.
Let's
I can
see,
go on the 13th. Oh, sorry.
I was saying, let's just do the 6th then.
Okay, Kate is on the 6th. Molly, what was that?
The 13th, please.
Same for Jake.
Jake, 13th.
13th.
Who's that?
Candace.
I'll just do the 13th as well.
Holly, okay. Sometimes when you guys talk, it flips to your face, so it highlights your face so I can see who it is, but other times it doesn't.
Are there spots available for the 6th still?
Yeah, who's that?
Hannah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is Shannon here yet? No, okay. I'm gonna have to assign Shannon. Sorry, Shannon. You're on the 13th. That way I think we can split 2 of our online each to 6, or 2 of our asynchronous each to the 6th and 13th, and that way we're evenly spread out. Sandy and Tara will go on the 6th, and other Jasmine and Kayla will go on the 13th. And by that, I mean just send in a recorded version of a little recording. We'll figure that out, how to do that. Okay, so does anybody need a reminder of what day they just signed up for? Did everybody write it down? Anybody forget what they just signed up for? No? Okay. Great, so
What are we talking about?
Funny. What are we talking about? That's a good question. We're talking about our KTP presentation. So what are those supposed to look like? Basically, you should be presenting all the same information that you presented in your 2-3-page write-up, but obviously in a more formal presentation format. And so I'm going to share a couple of good KTPs from previous years, and then a couple of not awesome KTPs from previous years. And I'll point out which one is good and bad. Not bad. Not awesome. Okay, I'm not going to turn the PowerPoint on. It always messes up. But you can see total, this is 13 slides. She's got 2 pages of references in there and this question slide. So really, and then a title slide. So really there's like 9 slides of content in here, which is probably sufficient. There's an explanation about who the population is. All of this is all information that was provided to some degree very briefly in the write-up. What's the past research? So this isn't anything new that this person had to go out and find. What are some of the impacts of parental deployments? What are the benefits? What programs are in existence out there for military kids? Specifically, she's interested in summer camp type things, and so there was a little bit more detail here on that. A few more examples of recreation-based programming, and then right into the knowledge translation plan. And this comes again right out of that KTP section in the document. So the recommendations here in terms of what the nuts and bolts could look like for a program for this population. And then the model. So this is also the same thing that was in the document. Delineating who the population is, what the intervention is, some characteristics of the population, the benefits of the intervention, and then the recommended setting that she said this is what it should be, and here's some outcomes. And then she just provided all the references that came out of the document. I would say in this one, the only thing that might be not awesome about it is that there's not a whole lot of detail about what this 1-week summer camp looks like, other than being a week long and a summer camp. So I guess the assumption there is that you're doing summer campy type of things, but no detail. So I would recommend adding in details. So I think with this many people per week, that gives us roughly 15 minutes. 15. There's an hour. So that's 2 hours for 8 people to go, 15 minutes each. And that gives us a few minutes for transition in between. So I'd say 10 minutes presenting, 10 to 12 minutes presenting, and then 3 minutes for questions. So you get a total of 15 minutes to go through this many slides, 9 slides. What was it? 8 or 9 slides. I think that is totally doable.
Does that also factor in our 5-minute break we get after the first hour?
Nope.
Oh.
It does not factor in a break. We will have to power through these last 2, all these presentations, or we won't have enough time to get through this many people. So if you need to take a break to eat some food or go to the bathroom or whatever, you'll just have to do it during presentations. Let me open another one.
AKA take a nap. Gotcha. I kid.
Pushing that envelope.
And you said last week that we are going to be like sitting, kind of sharing our screen, right? For the presentation?
Wait, say that again?
That when we're presenting, we'll be presenting like by sharing our screen. We're not like going to be standing in front of the classroom presenting.
Yeah, sorry. When you said sharing your screen, I thought you meant like 2 people sitting next to each other sharing.
No.
Yes, so you'll just hit the little share screen thingy at the bottom, and you'll run the PowerPoint through through everything.
Okay.
So you don't have to stand up and do all that. I would say still dress appropriately so that it's feels like a presentation.
Okay.
So here's another good one. This one has, minus these 3 end slides with references plus a front title. We're talking about 8 slides. Again, some background on the population, people with substance use disorders, some challenges for rec therapists in there. Again, all covered in the KTP. This person put a ton of information down here in the notes, and I think this was partly for the presentation element, just having a little bit more information to talk about so that there was not just like reading right off the slides. But this person also wrote a paper on this, and so I think that they were just cutting and pasting chunks of their text out of it into the notes. And that's fine for your own note purposes if you want to follow along. If you're not good about, you don't feel comfortable presenting and stuff like that, and you'd rather read content to support what's on the slides. If you have to read the slides, that's not always a great way to present, because we can read the slides, and so it's better to be able to talk around and just use the slides as a guideline. So this is an existing model that this person wanted to talk about. It was part of the bigger paper that was written, not so much the little KTP, but still supported kind of the arguments, and so in the presentation felt like it was an important piece to have in here. And then talking about some kind of example programs and components of recovery groups. So then the whole point of the KTP was tying recreation into recovery and treatment. And so this is where the KTP really took the direction went in the KTP. And this is the model that was provided. A lot more complicated than probably some of the other models were, and this person did have to explain it a little bit more than other people did, where some of the other ones were just easier to look at and see right off the bat. And I think it's okay if you have to do a little bit of explanation about what the components of your model. I think that's fine. But if it's super duper complicated and it's not clear, and even with explanation it's not clear, then it might be problematic. So this was a good one too. Also in here, I would feedback-wise say that there's not a whole lot of details about what a program could look like. So that next step application of how to use it in rec therapy is missing from this one. I think that's a hard concept for people to grasp because it seems to be one that's missing in a lot of KTP presentations and KTPs in general that I've seen in terms of our class stuff. Okay, I'm going to show you a not awesome one. I'm not going to have to say much about it. I think you guys will see it. So 3 slides. I'm not really sure that this is the model that they were talking about. I can't remember all the details of this one. But again, it's almost like it's unfinished. So this is a really good example of a really not awesome one. I do recall that this person kind of spoke about what all of this literature covered, but in terms of just like presenting, like a presentation style, this would not be a good way to present. Even though really slides are just meant to be like a guide to talk about things, this is just boring to stare at. And if you have 15 minutes and 3 slides and you're spending roughly 5 minutes per slide, that's 5 minutes of staring at these bullets. So I think that there is probably a more visually pleasing way to present than something like this. On top of it, it's just not very much content. And this is not a good model in terms of what we're talking about from the models for our knowledge translation plans. There's nothing in here about what the program components would look like. I think I don't see anything in here about outcomes potentially of a ropes course program. So not awesome. Does anybody have any questions about why? Do I need to go into it? No? Okay. And one more not awesome one. So this one has 12 slides minus a references and a cover, so 10. On the surface, it looks okay. This type of information is probably not necessary for your presentation. I mean, it's in the document, and that's because it's required to be there, but for a presentation, not really required. So again, on the surface, it looks okay, but when this was presented, it wasn't really tied together very clearly, and all of the relationships between these illnesses, and then she was trying to connect it to stress and chronic illness together, that it wasn't a strong connection between any of this. And so really it's only more noticeable through the presentation of it, but I'm pointing out that you can make a slide look really nice, but then still be able to get up and talk about it and it doesn't make sense. Hang on. Jake, in response to your question about needing references on the slides or just on the paper, you can put them at the end like these ones are, or you can integrate them through. I think that's what this one, yeah, you can integrate them through. It's really a style thing. Generally, when you're doing a formal research presentation, you have citations throughout your slides instead of just all at the end, including also sometimes at the end. It's just a style thing or a personal preference thing. She also didn't provide any explanation for what the pictures were about. I think they were just up there as examples of biofeedback is what this one was about. And it wasn't clear what it was about, what they were for. There were also no, in terms of the knowledge translation plan, a really weak explanation of what a biofeedback program would look like for people with chronic stress and illness. No details about program components or how often or anything like that. And then also a model that was not sure what this was about, what this model was trying to communicate to me. Also some feedback here, no program components. I mean, it does kind of look like outcomes are identified in here in terms of decreasing and increasing some things, but I'm not sure what the arrows are all about. This is a screenshot of a biofeedback program, and so in terms of visually, I think she was trying to connect it to that, but not a whole lot of detail here. So not awesome either for a variety of reasons. So any questions on this one? Any questions in general, just about what type of information needs to be communicated through your presentation? I mean, really, it's what's on your document. And so you can add a little bit more detail than what you can really type up.
I'm most kind of confused about the model. First of all, how do you make a model? Like how do you physically actually make it? Like, is there a tool that one might use? And then when you say program components, do you mean like you want us to include in the model just like aspects of the program, or like duration and frequency and all that? Does that need to be in the model, or are you just wanting like specifics of the treatment?
So that information should be in the document, right? We talked about this a couple weeks ago about what should go in that knowledge translation portion, the KTP portion of the document, where you should talk about, based on the evidence reviewed here, a rec therapist can use this intervention for this population to achieve these goals. A program could look like this many times, this long for each time, these types of activities, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so all of that should be present somehow in the model. Sorry, I was blanking on the word there. I'm almost on vacation, guys. After class, I'm on vacation, so my brain is like transitioning to vacation brain. To answer your question, yes, you can use PowerPoint to create your model. So you can come on up here to something like insert some shapes. I'm going to describe my population, and maybe some characteristics. I hope I don't see a whole bunch of models that'll look exactly like what I'm going to do here. And then let's say we've got some outcomes. Where did that go? I'm going to make my outcomes in a circle. Outcomes. Obviously provide the detail. So how do we get from this population to having some outcomes? Well, there's got to be something in the middle, right? How about here's my program for intervention or whatever, and some details. Right, so if you think back to the good example that I provided in the written document, that dragon boat one that everybody seemed to like, remember some of those documents that I provided that we took from the RT Wise Owls site didn't have the next step application to programming or the recommendation to programming. And so don't only look at those and think that this is the way to do it. We talked about it in class that there needs to be an application, a practical application that they don't do as part of their assignment for that class. At Temple, they didn't do that. But what I'm asking you guys to do here is to make an application to practice. So you can incorporate that visually into the model. And that's all it is in the model, is visually representing what you said in your document. We could put some arrows in here that this goes here, and then maybe this goes, put another line in, this goes here, I don't know, type of a thing. Does that help? PowerPoint is handy dandy. So you can use that as you're making the model that goes in your document, and then you can just save it as, I don't know if you can see this on my screen. I can't see it. Where'd it go? Save it as a PDF. And then you can just insert that into your document. Any questions about the models? Or is everybody more clear about models? Yeah? Okay. I'm happy to take a look at it if you want me to. You can shoot it to me and say, this is what I'm thinking, but don't send me something with like 2 bullet points and say, I can't come up with a model. Make an attempt and then ask for help on that. Okay, so 6:30. Let's go ahead and get started on talking about your CTRS interviews. And I think we are going to have 10 minutes or less per person. I'm going to lean more towards the less side of things so that we can get through everybody. So in a nutshell, tell us who you interviewed, where they worked, what kind of facility it is, and if they do research, if they do the research, what are they doing and how is it going? If they don't, what are they interested in doing? So over in the chat, if everybody could just sign up for what order we're going to go in, we'll follow that order. Ready, set, go. Okay, wait. No, okay, stop. That's not what I was thinking. Okay. I didn't communicate that well. Okay, Abby, you were the first to sign up. You're going first, then Jake, then Kate, then Claire, then Holly, then Hannah. Everybody else just say me. Okay, then Molly, then Gina, then Candace. Okay, everybody can follow that order?
Okay.
Yeah. Communicate that better next time. Everyone's like, wait, what's left? I'm going to go 12.
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So I talked to 3 people, but 2 of them are from the same facility. So I talked with, these are all like past students from Clemson. So I talked to Adrienne Blaylock, and she works at the Carolina Center for Behavioral Health. And I talked to Meredith. I forget her last name, but she's also a CTRS at the Carolina Center for Behavioral Health. And Adrienne says that she's not doing research. And then I asked her, like, what are barriers to doing research? And she said that she doesn't think there's enough time in the workday, like in her schedule, to do it. She says that there's always groups going on that she's having to lead, and documentation takes a lot of time. And she says that it'd be nice if, like, they had more people on staff, then maybe she would have time to do research. And I asked her if she could do research, what would she research? And she said that she'd like to provide more individualized treatment to the individuals. So the Carolina Center is like a mental health facility. There's like 7 different units, and each unit's a different population. So like there's a dementia unit, there's like psychosis, and then there's like depression, and there's also an adolescent unit for like behavioral disorders and depression and stuff like that. And so she said that the activities they're doing now at the facility kind of just, they do them with everybody, no matter like what unit it is. And so she said that she'd like to research some more individualized treatment for those people. Okay.
So really quick, I'm going to interject a question here.
Yeah.
When she's saying research, is she referring to it as, I just want to look up more individualized treatment, as opposed to I want to determine what the outcomes of our services are?
Okay. So that's kind of what I got from it, basically, was that she just kind of, I don't think she really like understood research, like what research I was talking about. So that's kind of what I got from Meredith as well, who also works there. They kind of both were like, they just want to do more individualized treatments. They wanted to research like activities for the population that they worked with, which was like okay, but I didn't know if I should like prod for like more. I don't know. But Meredith also said that barriers to doing research there were access to computers and resources. And yeah. So I have another person. She works at Frank at Seaside. It's in Charleston. It's a skilled nursing facility. And her name's Emmy. And she says that she's not doing research. She says that one of the barriers to doing research is that all of the residents kind of live independently, and they can just participate in activities as they please. So I kind of got the vibe that it's not very therapeutic, that it's like they can sign up for different things to do during the day or the week. And I asked her what kind of research she'd like to do. And she actually said a research, like question type thing. She said probably something about the benefits of recreational therapy on a spousal caretaker. She says, because there are lots of cases where the wife or husband has to take care of their spouse who has an injury, and they become really stressed while taking care of them. So she said that she would like to understand how recreational therapy could help the spouses who take care of their
Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I was like, yeah.
Some caregiver research going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, anything else to add on those? I mean, overall, what did you think about the experience of talking to people?
I found it very interesting, actually, just to talk with actual rec therapists in the field, even considering like I haven't been one yet. So it was nice to know their input, and I kind of found it sad that the people I talked to weren't doing research, but I think maybe getting the word out there by talking to them will, like, you know, maybe spark something or make them think about it more, that we need it. So yeah, I liked it, and I found some pretty common themes with why they weren't doing research. So
yeah, I think by the end of this discussion tonight, there will be a lot of common themes amongst everybody, and that tends to be how it goes.
yeah.
Okay, great. Good job. Next, Jake.
Good evening. So I interviewed two people that I work just because I pretty much assumed, and I was correct, that I'm the only one doing any kind of research, but it's pretty much because I'm in school. Um, and the two people that I interviewed at work said that neither one of them do research. Um, Camille said that she does not do research because she doesn't find it interesting. Yeah, I kind of almost laughed out loud.
Okay.
um, and Kendra said that she doesn't do it because she's not motivated and she used the word complacent with where she is. So I was a little perturbed at that. Actually, very perturbed at those two comments. So then I kind of started trying to I would ask questions to get more information out of them or try to make them understand why evidence-based research to implement in your practice is critical. And they both, I kind of started, dropping hints saying like, all right, well, I hear what you're saying, but a lot of people, don't have access to a database or they, don't have time. And they said, oh yeah, that's something I can agree with as well. And I went, well, Google Scholar's out there. And they went, Camille said, oh yeah, I used that when I was in school. If I can find time in a work day, well, she just had a baby not too long ago, so she's pretty slammed with that. But Kendra had never heard of it before.
Scholar?
Mm-hmm. But she also has been in the field for 25, 26 years. She graduated from a school in Florida in like 92, I think.
She's the one who said that she wasn't motivated or she was complacent?
Complacent, yes.
Okay. Maybe there's a generational issue there.
I thought about that as well, and she said that she does look at certain things that pertain to the groups or interventions that she leads in her groups. And I said, well, do okay, that's cool. I'm glad you do that. But are they like scholarly or like journal articles? And she said no. And that's when I brought up Google Scholar, and she said, oh, well, I'll definitely take a look at that then. So that gave me a little bit of hope.
So what is she looking at if it's not scholarly?
I do not know.
I mean,
I did not pry into that. I just kind of like avoided that and went, here's what you should like focus your attention towards.
All right. So did you ask if they could do research, what they could do or be interested in doing?
Your reactions are killing me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested, you went. Yeah, I know like Kendra does a like kitchen and nutrition group, anger management, partnering with their treatment team, things like that. And so she said that she wants to look at, like a lot of like nutritional aspects and I guess community-based coaching skills. And the other person said, hold on, let me think. Leisure-based activities based on our assessments that would pertain to each individual and also community as well, because we do a lot of community outings for community reintegration purposes.
Well, based on the fact that they said they're not really interested and complacent, I'm surprised they came up with potential ideas.
That's why I kind of like,
I guess
as soon as they said I'm not interested, I went, all right, this is not good.
Yeah. But can you see though that that's, if there are a lot of practitioners that think that way, they're just not interested and they don't really care to know even what research is, what the word research means, or any of that, that it could be really hard to then try to convince them of the need, right?
Yes.
So
that's why I was trying to like get them to kind of see, or at least, throw out Google Scholar, here's a way to, at least, you don't have to have a database. It's not going to give you everything that, I guess a database in general isn't going to give you everything that you want or need, but here's at least a decent reference.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree. They both kind of seem that, I don't know, it bothered me that they're not, as much as they talk about trying to like further the profession and better the field, they're like, evidence-based practice, research.
There's a lot of people that think that way. And I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, good job. Next, we got to keep on moving. I'm going to keep you guys short. Kate, you're up.
Yeah, so I had a pretty decent pool to choose from, and I actually went with two people that both graduated from Temple, one in the last 4 years and one 30 years ago. So I wanted to see, and they're also in different positions. One is an assistant position and one's a director position. So I wanted to see how they differed in their approaches and what they did. And coming to a little defense of the people that have been out of school for almost 30 years, Google Scholar didn't exist when we were in school. Internet didn't really exist when we were in school. We were still pulling books and journals of the shelves to do our research. So talking to the person that had been in the field for that long, she was excited about Google Scholar, and that she actually, she uses Atra as her main source of information. She's doing the workshops. She actually was a part, before she came to work for me, came to work for us, she was working in a local rehab hospital. And they had different levels of rec therapists within that rehab hospital. And if you were in one of the, like 1 through 4 tier, once a month, people got together and they had to present on a topic, which I thought was really cool. So it seems like they were probably pulling some of the KTPs out, because this is, in that area, and they had to actually present in a very similar way that we're probably going to do at the end of class. So she's been exposed to a lot, and she enjoyed that. And she really had some great ideas, especially with looking at the intersection of all the short stay rehab people coming into long-term care. Really looking at what's rec therapy's role in fall reduction. How are we doing that in a meaningful way? And even looking at how are we increasing, rehab goals? Are we working on balance and those particular things, especially with, a geriatric population? She was talking about, in general, just providing education and getting what we do. She said that she used to look at the journals. The building that she worked in a long time ago had the journals. She herself doesn't subscribe to them, and she doesn't bring that in. But right now, where she's in a real challenge of trying to educate her team on the difference between diversional activities and therapeutic activities, she was actually really excited to go back and start, pulling those out again and really bringing them in, and maybe even starting some of that level 1, level 2 research that her team has to do now to make evidence-based programming. But what's cool, even though she hasn't been necessarily doing as much research herself, she actually participated as a family caregiver in something very similar that you were just talking about. Her mother has dementia, and she's very engaged in the local Alzheimer's Association. So she was a part of a study that talked about the emotional and physical impacts on caregivers. And she did the pre and post studies, so we got some good information about that. So that was her. That was Kimberly. And then Tanner, he actually was in one of our buildings where we pushed trying to get doctor's orders and all of that, which was really cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't really moved up to the level where the doctors were submitting orders, but the nurses would submit orders for services. And so with talking about what he did, he right away talked about Google Scholar, and that was a place most of his programming is evidence-based, and that he talked about falls being a big one, dementia care being a big area, especially looking at reminiscence. There's even a music therapist that works there, so sometimes they'll partner up. But he was excited. He even talked about how looking at relaxation programs, when they do their calendar, because he was just doing research about patterns and tempos, that they plan programming different based on the full moons because of the memory care. So
Interesting.
yeah, and I'd say in that building, definitely rec therapy is very well respected. And he talked a lot about, autonomy and giving choices. I think Kimberly at the other building is going to really elevate the programs and working with rehab. And she also talked a lot about like the baking groups in the community, healthy cooking, and partnering with other departments. So I thought it was actually pretty exciting to see that what they were doing out in the field at this level.
Yeah. Interesting. So it sounds like a number of you have talked about your people saying that they do research, and what they're really doing is kind of like the most basic form of research in terms of looking up the other research, doing what you guys have done in this class, pulling articles and trying to use that knowledge. And that does count as research to some degree. It's not outcomes research, but it does contribute to the evidence-based practice. So I think that's great that some people are talking about doing that, because then, for example, you have some people like who Jake talked to who don't seem to be doing that for whatever reason, but are also not interested in doing that. And so interesting. This, again, is a theme that has popped up in past years of interviews. And so I hear it over and over again. And at the bare minimum, I think that's good that that's happening. But it is the bare minimum in terms of research activity. But I guess it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah. And as a side note, I was at NCAP's national, they had like a call to action because of the new regs. They're trying to redesign their activity director certification. So I was there, and the new president or CEO of the company actually announced in front of the whole group that there was a ton of evidence out there showing how, we benefit the field and that we need to capitalize that on moving ourselves. And I'm like, where are you finding this guy?
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting that he feels that there's an overwhelming amount of research being done on recreation and its impact in the field.
Interesting. Yeah, where's he finding that? Well, I think we talked about this way back in the beginning of the semester, that we can consume research and we can produce research, and it's like two sides of the same coin, we being the coin. And so we need to be able to do both. And so it's good to hear that to some degree, at least consuming research is happening. Okay, Claire.
Oh, so the first person I interviewed was Mindy Brown. She graduated from UT. I think she went there for undergrad and her master's in rec therapy. Her and I met at we were both on this ATRA student education and leadership committee. And I met her at an ATRA conference. Her job title is recreational therapist. She's working in pediatric behavioral health at Park Ridge Valley Hospital in Chattanooga. Most of her patients are between 5 and 17 years old, and they all have emotional and behavioral health issues. One thing I noticed between both of the people that I interviewed was that they were both, it sounded like they both did a lot more than just their job. Like they were doing a lot of jobs. So for her specifically, she does group therapy. She does one-on-one stuff. She's talking about doing trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And she is in the starting process of doing research. She created a comfort room, and it's it sounds kind of like a multi-sensory room to lower anxiety, kind of de-escalate when there's behavior issues. So she said it's kind of long-term, that she is wanting, the initial part was developing the comfort room. And she said that has been the biggest barrier that she's faced so far with her research, is that people, like getting the rest of the staff to buy into this idea, to kind of funding for it and stuff. But it's there, it's in existence. She's still working, to improve it, but it's there. So, and she's kind of collecting the data, part of kind of like what you talk about doing research just with what you already have to do with your job, that she's having to assess, their reactions and seeing if there are improvements. So she's kind of incorporating that into her research. So it's kind of in the initial stages as far as that goes of collecting. But she's measuring their ability to emotionally regulate, like if it improves their ability to regulate their emotions. But yeah, as far as actually they're supportive of her actually doing the research now, because they're not doing anything in addition to like her normal job. But the biggest issue was the comfort room. But she said it is challenging just with time, because she's doing so much stuff.
Yep.
And not only that, but like she's outside of like rec therapy stuff, there's 3 other rec therapists working with her, and they're all in charge of doing all like funding their own activities for, she said that they spend all year fundraising for Christmas. They have all these, Christmas activities for the kids, and that they're basically in charge of funding that themselves, and finding, fundraising for that. But she's also a manager, so she's supervising people. She's on the behavioral emergency response team. She has to supervise patients when they're calling their parents or family members. And she supervises in the cafeteria. It just like the list of stuff they have to do is insane. So she said she was pretty pleased that she got the comfort room, going with on top of everything else. But yeah, so her research is just starting. She's excited about it. But at this point it's kind of just collecting patient by patient. So
sometimes it takes a really long time to get through that stage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty long.
Something's happening.
Yeah. So she's excited about it. And the other one I interviewed was Michaela Bierick. She and I went to Western together. She also just graduated from Clemson's master's online program last May. She is working, her title is senior recreation therapist. She's working at Greater Binghamton Health Center. It's in Binghamton, New York. And she's also working in a pediatric psych unit. And she said all of her patients are coming directly from the emergency room at Binghamton, and they come to them if they've had an acute and severe episode of depression or a psychotic break, and it's usually suicide attempts. She also does an insane amount of jobs. Like the state requires that they provide school, like regular school, and she's in charge of PE, which I thought was interesting because she's not a PE teacher, but she's doing that 3 to 4 times a week. And on top of that, she does individual groups with the boys and then girls, and then a whole group together every week. She teaches yoga. She's doing a program called Youth Empowerment Strategies that's every day and usually involves a short meditation. She also created her own assessment for it's a rec therapy assessment. It's basically measuring participation. She said that's kind of a long-term goal of hers, is to improve it and make it kind of legitimate. But she said because she's working for the state that it's a really difficult and long process. She also, ironically enough, similar to Mindy, is made kind of her own snoozling room, a homemade snoozling room. She uses that every week. And she also is a supervisor as well. So she said she's not currently doing research, but that's mostly because she is still revising her thesis paper for submission. She said she's wrapping up a lot of things from grad school still, so she's kind of just gotten started there. But she said her goal, what she'd love to research for kind of a long-term project, would be the rec therapy internship experience. And she said when she was while she was in Clemson, she developed a model for clinical supervision in RT internships, and she'd like to standardize it and publish that. And she said a short-term project she's interested in doing is using essential oils at night. She said a lot of her kids are asking for Benadryl at night to help them sleep, and she's wondering if they were using essential oils, if that would lower the amount of requests for Benadryl. But she said she's already had a lot of pushback for that, because she said she wasn't expecting for there to be a lot of hesitation there, but because she they're not rubbing it on their skin, she thought that if they just did kind of an air diffuser, that it would be okay. But apparently they're concerned about it absorbing through the skin, so she's already kind of facing some issues with that. But she said she doesn't think it's gonna stop it, but even just the initial idea for the kids back.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Hang on one second. Kids just got home.
You're fine.
We'll take a quick break.
Okay.
Do you guys want to come say hi? Say hello. These are all Mom's students. This is what I'm doing every week when I'm at school at night. Say hi, everybody. Hi. Okay. Okay, ready? Okay, sorry, they're getting in the bathtub. Okay, so hang on, I'm trying to remember. I was thinking of something I wanted to say based off of what the last 2 or 3 of you had said. A lot of you guys have described how all these people are doing all these other odd jobs that are not like typically rec therapy jobs, and that it makes it difficult to do research on top of that. I think that makes the case for infusing research into what you already do, right? So that it's not extra. It just is already naturally part of what you're doing. And by research, what we're talking about is just collecting data on the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And so it can be built in. It doesn't have to be extra on top of what we do. Okay, so in order to get the noise out of here, Holly, you're next. Okay, ready? I'm going to mute.
All right, sorry if I sound a little I haven't been feeling well today, so if my voice kind of cuts in and out, that's why. So the first person I interviewed, I reached out to one of my former internship supervisors and interviewed her. She's been a CTRS for 12 years, and she worked for 11 years in long-term care, and then this past year transferred over to inpatient psych. And fun fact, when I talked to her and she was asking me what I was doing, I was like, well, I'm going to school and I just moved and I don't currently have a job. She's like, well, the CTRS I'm working with is going to be quitting soon. So if you're interested, like, you can send your resume in. And so I did that yesterday. So I might be working in inpatient psych soon. All about those connections and people you know. But anyway, let's see here. So yeah, she works currently in inpatient psych. And when I asked her if she currently does any research, she said she does not. And when I asked her why, she's like, there's a lack of time and resources. And she said she doesn't have any interest in doing any research. So I don't know if that's just kind of a mentality. Like for me, I don't know if I would have pursued it before getting the master's degree, just like understanding it better. So that might be kind of like where she's at with that. But she says the reason that she has no interest is because there's no visible benefits or pay for doing so at the current place that she's at. Yeah. So she said, I think it's kind of like an addition to what other people are saying, adding onto that list. Like, if this is something I'm going to do, I kind of want to be compensated in some way. So I think that's kind of where she was going with that. And she said, plus she's always had a lot of pushback with having to explain and defending the need and importance of rec therapy and educating others constantly that we are more than glorified babysitters. So she said she's always had a lot of pushback with her management and administration. So I think she's kind of gotten fed up with that, just constantly having just to justify what she's doing in general, let alone trying to get resources for research. So she said in her current setting, though, that it is definitely more therapeutic and you see a lot more progress and improvement. So she said, when I asked her if she's interested in conducting, again, not so much, but she said that if it would be interesting to see how a rec therapist could benefit the whole hospital instead of just the psych unit, because they're actually contracted in, they're not employees of the hospital. So like other hospital systems have child life specialists and stuff like that. So she said it would be kind of interesting. Again, in the central Michigan area where I'm at, it's very rural and there aren't many big hospitals that actually have CTRS positions. So they're actually contracted in through a psychiatrist, I believe, psychiatrist office, like private practice kind of thing. So, and then the second person that I interviewed, she was actually, I knew her in high school. She was a few years behind me, and she ended up going to the same college or university I went to. And when they were doing volunteer opportunities, I had told the college, hey, I know I'm like 20 minutes away, but if you want to send volunteers my way, that'd be great. And she saw my name and facility and she contacted me, and now she's graduated, has been a CTRS for a year, and she works in pediatric and works with young adults and some older adults with auto-related brain injuries in home and community settings down in Flint, Michigan. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Flint water crisis. So just in kind of a random tangent, I would be interested in seeing what's going to happen with all of the lead poisoning and how that's going to affect children and people. And anywho, that was just when I saw that, I'd be like, oh, hey, are you interested in looking further into that? But that's a whole different, I guess, tangent. Sorry. Let's see here. Where am I at? I don't want to take up too much time. So she said she currently does not partake in any research, and what barriers? She said that there's a major lack of time. They currently have 6 facilities and only 1 CTRS per center. And so there's kind of with full schedules and limitations. And I think, again, what everybody else has been saying, there's just so many things to do with their job. So it's just one of those things that gets pushed to the back burner because it's not part of one of their paid duties. And if she were to do any type of research, she said she would be interested in looking at adaptive sports and aquatics with patients with brain injury. So there we go.
Okay, I have to interject something here before we go on to who's next, Hannah. Okay, because you painted a really clear picture, but I think this is underlying of what a lot of people have said in terms of, I don't get paid to do this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I beg to differ, and then here's how I'm going to show you. Everybody knows what the NCTRC job analysis thingy is, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's straight off of nctrc.org. Let's go down and look really quick. I highlighted all the spots. What are your job duties under professional relationships and responsibilities? Enhance professional competence through contribution to the field, e.g. professional presentations, research, attending conferences. Hang on a second. I'm going to find all the places where it says research. Come back. Okay. Number 2, this is under the managed TRRT services. Support research programs or projects. Where else does it show up? Under advancement of the profession, research activities, research of evidence-based literature, efficacy of TRRT interventions. shows up in here. Oh, in collaboration between higher education and direct service providers, provision of internships supporting research. Okay, so this is, I think, 4 different places in our job task analysis where it says research is a part of our job. And this is the job task analysis is based on what the skill, the competencies are, the expectation of competency at the bachelor's level. So for everybody who thinks, I'm not paid to do this, this is extra in my job. No, no, no. It's not. I'm sorry. I'm totally on my soapbox right now. Okay. This isn't extra. This isn't, I don't just get to pick and choose which parts of my job as a rec therapist I get to do, right? No. Okay. Sorry. Soapbox. So again, I hope all of you will stand on this soapbox with me from now on, right? This is our job. This is part of our job. I will absolutely 100% own the fact that our education programs don't do a good enough job of training people at the bachelor's level to be able to do this part of their job. At Clemson, we're trying to address that at the master's level. And hopefully one day we'll have the ability to address it at the undergrad level. But it does not mean that I never learned how to do it, so I'm just not going to do it. We have to learn how to do it. We have to figure out how to do it.
I feel like that was my biggest, that's the, I guess, issue, is that research isn't addressed enough as a part of the bachelor's degree. And if it's going to be a job requirement, you can't just have one lecture about it in one of your classes and expect to be able to do it. Like I said before I started this, I wouldn't have necessarily pursued wanting to actually conduct research. But now that I'm more educated, as in anything else, it's oh yeah, there are so many different types, and it can be as simple as doing a KTP or whatever. So
yeah,
I think it's just bridging that gap somehow, trying to get there. So we'll end that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I'm kind of overflowed there because you weren't the first one to say it, but this is our job. It's part of our job. We just apparently don't know that. Okay, moving on. Hannah.
Okay. Hello. Okay, so I ended up interviewing 2 previous coworkers from different facilities. And I will start with Lynn, who I worked with at OSU at the inpatient psychiatric hospital. And I try to talk about this without getting mad because it comes down to politics and a lot of cattiness between coworkers and just all this terrible stuff. Okay. Anyways, so she's been practicing for 17 years. And we talked about, when I was there, just ways to improve as RTs and what kind of groups we could do. And she was really interested in looking at Tai Chi. She specifically was working with the higher functioning adults who had anxiety, depression, some SI, because the floors are divided by acuity. So there are a lot of issues, including resources, but RT was kind of forced without really having a say into a core programming team with social workers and nurses. And so with that, the director is a social worker who doesn't support RT necessarily, and a lot of crossing of boundaries happen, and the social workers were running RT groups and the nurses were running RT groups, and there was just a lot of people going outside of their scope of practice and thinking that they could run the groups that we could, and that kind of caused a lot of tension. And so with that sort of built over time, and then going through the core program director, she just would never approve it, and she would always say no. And so with Lynn, she's just been trying so hard for so long that it's kind of sad to see that she just kind of she's burnt. And it's kind of a situation where the director probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and the only support we have is in HR, but he just wants to keep peace with everybody and isn't really doing, because he's a rec therapist. So it's just this huge web of stuff. And there's also, with the themes going on, there's just not enough time, and we have to run 6 groups a day, do 2 1-to-1s, and have to do all of our charting, and they're already staying over because that can't get finished. So it's pretty frustrating. And I think before we could even get to the research part at that facility, we have to just show alone that, like, you guys can't do what we do. Like, you should be doing social work groups and nursing groups, and we need to be running these groups. And that's just like, so the foundation is totally messed up and whatever. So that is just really frustrating. And I think she really would want to do research and do outcome-based research, but I just think she's just burnt out. And she just doesn't see a point at this point, and she kind of just wants to go to work and go home, which sucks, but it's just kind of like the atmosphere that's going on.
Culture plays such a big part in being able to do research, and if somebody is burnt out, but the administrative culture, the management culture is that you don't help them not be burnt out, whether that's giving them a couple of, mental health days or anything like that, then how could you expect people to do more difficult things like research? I didn't want to say extra things because it's not extra, right? But it's more challenging for people when they don't have the skill, or just it's not a natural part of what they do, and they're burnt out on top of it. It's just like one more thing, right?
Yeah.
Thing, especially as you guys have all described it, how everybody's doing all of this extra, non-typical RT stuff. And so culture makes a huge difference, whether it's culture around research or just culture, the organizational culture in general.
Definitely. So yeah, that was a really big struggle. Like, I didn't, obviously, like Holly said, like, I didn't really think about research as much until I got back into school, but I just didn't even think I could do anything, like, because of that culture. And it was really frustrating. I think it was a good experience because I now know what it's like to work in an environment like that. But it's kind of sad. So that was Lynn at OSU. And then I interviewed a coworker named Alex. She works at Nationwide Children's, where I worked PRN. So I wasn't as familiar with the culture there because I just picked up as needed sort of thing. But she works, she splits her time between the Youth Crisis Stabilization Unit and the GI unit. But she's really interested in looking at physical activity on the YCSU unit. And the kids, they're usually there from like 1 to 3 days, but they can't leave their rooms and they're really limited to activity. So she wants to go in and do physical activity with them and kind of just see what the outcome of that is. It's kind of hard because they have such a short stay, but that's what she said she was interested in. And she gave me a lot of limitations. So she also said overall culture at the hospital just isn't supportive of research. Really all they care about is productivity. So a good day is based on how many patients that you saw. And if you don't keep up with your productivity, like, you get sort of reprimanded. So like everyone's so nervous about making productivity that they can't really spend the time doing other things. And they don't allow the time for the committees. And like, if you could have a research committee or meetings or anything like just for support, they just don't allow the time for that because they're focused on the revenue from the patient care and not research that validates what we're doing. And she said lack of resources as well was an issue. So they were kind of similar just with the cultures and the lack of support. And I think with Nationwide Children's, it is more revenue focused, and like, you need to see this amount of patients a day. And if you don't, you're not being productive. If you're not being productive, yada, yada, yada. So that was more her thing. So, which is kind of weird to me because they do have an EBP group, like within the clinical therapies department, where each discipline has to do it like once a month. So they allow for that, but they don't allow for anything else beyond that. So that like kind of confuses me. And it's like, well, what's the point if you can't really do anything with it? So I don't know. It was just kind of, it confuses me why they want that standard and then they won't provide anything beyond it so that we can actually conduct the research. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. I hope that at the end of today, we aren't all pissed off and frustrated. I mean, maybe we're going to be pissed off in a good way, like go out and, persist, resist, whatever, type of a thing. And not like pissed off, I want to shoot up the place type of a thing. Okay, so let's be pissed off to make a difference and change things in a positive way. All right, who's next? Molly, I think. Yeah, Molly.
Okay. So I actually did two different, like very different types of people. So I did someone that got a bachelor's and someone got a master's. So I did the person that got a bachelor's. His name is CJ, and he was actually my internship supervisor. He works with people in autism at this place called Wilson Workforce and Rehab Center. And his background in research, I asked him if he'd ever done any research at all, and he said that he had just did like a research project in undergraduate school, and like he couldn't even remember the topic. Like, so it like he pretty much told me like it didn't have much significance to him anymore. Like research kind of like doesn't really resonate with him at all when we talked about it. And he didn't feel like he could regularly do it when we just kind of discussed what research was to him. And he didn't feel like he said he's gone to conferences. That's what he said. But when he goes to conferences, he leaves and he doesn't feel like he learned a single thing that he could go back and be like, oh yeah, now I can actually do research. And when I said, do you do any research at the actual center? And he said the only research we've actually done is like on assessments, but he doesn't do them. He has they have a director, like a CTRS director, and she collects the assessments. And so he's never actually been hands-on and done any research at the facility. So I asked him if there was any research he would be interested in doing at the facility specifically, and he said that he would be interested in looking at like different types of behaviors in the autism and like what affects their behavior when they leave the facility. And I said, well, is there anything like else you would ever want to be doing research in? And he said like something's like totally different from his facility. And he said he would be interested in looking at music and aphasia with strokes. So I we kind of just discussed like, well, there's like always research out there. You can look into that like in your free time. But like when we talked about that, he was like, no, I don't want to really do that in my free time. So that was kind of interesting to talk about, but he wasn't really interested in it at all.
That's fair. I don't want to work in my free time.
Yeah. And so then the other person I did was Morgan Blythe. She just graduated with her master's at Clemson, online actually. And she now works at a nursing facility and is like a director. I'm not sure what the nursing facility is called. She told me she was really unhappy there, actually, and she wants to get another job. Yeah. And so she said that she was doing, and she actually got her thesis working with she said it was doing activities for older adults in long-term care. So she got her research in the specific area. But when we talked more in depth, she said that she would be completely open to doing research in a completely different area, which is interesting that both people wanted or were interested in doing research in something like a completely different topic. She said she wanted to do research in autism. Like her dream would be able to run a camp or something around horse therapy with people with autism. So they both have flip-flop views of research. They both are interested in a completely different topic for their research. And right now she was doing evidence-based practice research for outcome measurements through grants. That's the only research she's able to do at the moment. She said she hasn't been able to do in-depth research that she's been able to really apply from her classes here at Clemson. But she said she's able to do evidence-based practice.
Okay. Yeah. So a little bit of something better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, she feels like she hasn't really been able to get a lot of opportunities at her facility.
Sometimes it takes time to make the inroads for people to understand what you're talking about when you talk about research, be able to commit resources, whether it's time or, access to journals or whatever. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I acknowledge that it doesn't just happen like that. Oh, I want to do research. Okay, here you go. Everything you need.
Yeah, and she said it was also because she just stepped into the director role of her facility, and they've had a lot of changes in positions. She's hired then fired then hired, and so I think kind of what everyone has been saying, everyone has different roles and they're doing things that they're not used to doing. So I think the management position has had a different toll on her, and so maybe if she wasn't having to do all this other stuff, she could have time. But I mean, that's not really an excuse. So
No, but it's reality, and we do have to manage. And let me make something clear, and I hope I haven't painted this picture that research in practice is an all-day, everyday thing. It's not.
mm-hmm.
You know, it can be structured to be minutes per day, or you know, 1 day a week, not even a full day, but you know, that there are just like small chunks of time committed to it throughout a week or a month or something. You know, if you build it into what you're already doing in terms of assessment, then it's already happening, so it's not extra time. So it doesn't have to feel like it's this, oh my gosh, you expect me to do this much all the time. No, that's not really what I'm saying. You know, a well thought out and a well developed research plan within an organization isn't a major time commitment, but it takes time to get there. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good job. We're making good progress. We got a few more people. Who's next? Gina, then Candace, then Haley, then Heather, then Shannon.
Okay, so the two people I interviewed, well, first was my boss, and we work at a skilled nursing facility. It's basically it's 3 floors, 45 residents per floor. And I was quite surprised to find out that she actually was doing some research. She's only been there 3 months, but the leadership team all are required to do some type of research with their quality measures. And hers are related to basically falls. And so she's doing hers on, which is really important. We're all focusing on, everybody in nursing homes are focusing on the non-farm interventions, hence the essential oils for myself. And hers are related to sleep. So hers is the use of non-pharmacological, non-pharm interventions related to sleep and falls, and the impact on quality of life. And what kind of what you were saying is this does not impact a lot of her time at work, because what she is doing is she does implement a lot of what her a lot of her data she obtains from what we're actually doing at work. She got a Acti watch to put on residents to find out, to track their sleep at night, which that comes through the computer. That does the work for her. The staff doesn't have to do anything but make sure the watch is on at night, so it's real limited as far as what they have to do. I'm doing the evening programs at night to make sure that those people who tend to fall are active and involved using the essential oils, different kinds of things. She, let's see what else. So she ties it into all the programs. I asked her where she gets her research from, and she's still using her college library research from Calvin College in Michigan. And she researches medical journals, psychological journals, and science journals. She does not use Google Scholar. She uses a lot of the psych journals because she wants to also relate it to how it reduces depression. And I asked her if at any time she wanted to publish, and she said no, absolutely not. She's not interested in taking her research any further than what she has to as far as this program goes. So I thought that was kind of funny that she didn't want to go that far. So, but she is very active as far as that goes, as far as the research goes. So, but I didn't know if she was as involved in it as she was. And then the other person that I talked to was one of my past interns. Her name's Maria Davis, and she works at another skilled nursing facility. It's a Brookdale facility, and they're all over the country. Basically, they are your independent assisted living and memory care type units, and she works on the more of the skilled nursing facility where they're in and out quite often. She is not doing any research. She's still fairly new CTRS, but she feels that her administrators would be really open, her boss would be really open to that. Of course, time is a big issue, programming for her. She's still trying to figure out how to incorporate TR into her programming. So what she does do is, look for ideas on the web, YouTube, that type of thing, the TR, the ATRA websites, things like that. If she were going to do a research program, a research project, she said that it would be related to, let's see, I have it in here somewhere, strokes, more interventions, working with people with CVAs, which is interesting, and I'll get to that point in a moment. I asked her if she would be interested, and she's the one that I wanted to partner with my research project with the essential oils, and she absolutely said yes. She's very excited to start that program with me, and I told her once we finished that, I was involved in a stroke treatment program and would love to do more research on that. So when we finish that, maybe we'll get into the stroke treatment piece of it. So I was really excited about that.
That's awesome. And again, research doesn't have to be a scary thing that we do by ourselves. Collaboration sometimes is like the key to making it happen. And that's awesome. Way to go. All right, Candace.
Okay, I interviewed 2 CTRS in North Carolina. One was Millie. I went to school with her at UNC Greensboro. She now works at Strategic Behavioral Health in Charlotte. She hasn't been there that long. She's been there a few months, but she that is not currently doing any research. She said that if she was taught how to do research, then she would be open to doing it. She doesn't feel comfortable right now doing it by herself. She said if she did do research, it would be how exercise improves mental health in adolescents. She said that she thinks her facility would be supportive of her research, but she doesn't think it would be very successful because her clients don't come every day. And then I also interviewed my internship supervisor, Chelsea, at Piedmont Senior Health, and she wanted to look at the effects of Tai Chi on older adults. They just started a Tai Chi program there once a month, and she said that she thinks the facility would be supportive as well, but she's not currently conducting any research, and she feels like she's very busy. She would have to figure out how to incorporate it into her practices because she is the supervisor, so she is doing groups throughout the day and then going to meeting when she's not in groups. But they're about to add on another rec therapist position, so she's hoping that with more help that she'll be able to do more.
So what I'm hearing from everybody is that we need to have an undergrad version of the research in practice class, this applied research class, so that it's not such a scary thing. Okay, good job. Haley.
All right, so the first person I interviewed was Sally Brindle, and she just recently got certified 2 years ago, but she's actually been doing aquatic therapy for like 30-something years. And so hers is a little bit different because she's acting as a recreation therapist, but she's not allowed to call it therapy or anything. So she provides aquatic therapy, but she can't call it that. But when she was doing her master's to get recreation therapy, she just did it. And she researched aquatic therapy, and she liked doing that, and she's seen it results in the past, but she hasn't been doing any research on it since then, really. She said she didn't enjoy research, and so she's not really interested in doing it in the future. because she's not planning on staying in the field for too much longer. She wants to retire.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's not
But
like,
she said if she would, it would be in more aquatic therapy because she's seen the benefits of it with people with dementia.
okay,
Right.
that's fair. You know what? And I will acknowledge this as well. You don't have to love research. I'm, as much as I like it and I talk about how awesome it is and I love doing it and all this stuff, I don't expect that everybody will love how to do it. There's a lot of aspects of our jobs that we don't love, right? But we still do it because that's part of our job skill set. And so even if you don't love it, we got to know how to do it. We got to be taught how to do it, but that's a whole different issue, right? Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So that was her main thing, is that she didn't enjoy research, and she didn't think her facility would be too open to it since they weren't even willing to call her stuff therapy, really, because she doesn't have licensure in Indiana. They didn't want to do it quite well. She's still working on getting it under physical therapist so she can get insurability and be able to do more therapy services than she currently is. And then I also talked with Becky Halua. Halua. I worked with her over my internship. She was one of the multiple CTRS on staff at the VA. And she has her master's and she's interested in research, and she did some in the past. But recently, the way the culture is there and the lack of, they had a CTRS leave or get reassigned. And so they haven't been able to she hasn't been able to find the time to do research because she's been so busy covering for other people that are missing. And so that was her main issue with research. And she said if she were to do research, she'd want to do more physical rehab. She has a specialty certification in it, and she was wanting to do more with the active duty military is what she really wants to do. And unfortunately, that program was removed a couple years ago from that VA. So that was some of her main barriers, as she said, to research.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. Heather. I'm starting to hear the same things over and over again, so.
I'm going to try not to repeat the same things over and over again. I'm going to try to bring a little bit of a different perspective. So I interviewed, I don't know if this was cheating, but I interviewed 2 CTRSs. Both of them happened to have been my interns.
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay. So the first one is Erica. She works at an independent psychiatric facility in Sycamore Springs in Indiana. And then the other one, her name is Angelina, and she works in my old position in an acute psychiatric facility in Terre Haute, Indiana. So without trying to repeat things from people, big difference with the girls was the culture. So they both graduated roughly around the same time. They've been out for about 2 to 3 years. Both are certified. Both gave great answers of how do you define research. They both quickly went to evidence-based practice. They both discussed AJRT and TRJ and Google Scholar, and they know how to get resources. But the big thing and the difference with them is the culture within the facilities that they're working at. So Erica is burnt out. She doesn't like it. She doesn't care. She doesn't feel like she gets recognition. And she really discussed a lot about the facility as a whole structure and not necessarily rec therapy, which makes me think that she might have been fed that through the facility. So when I asked her, is your facility doing research, or are you doing research? Immediately, no, she wasn't. Is your facility involved in any forms of research since you work in an interdisciplinary treatment team? And she automatically went to, well, we just had a marketing group come in and they told us, along with the doctor, they told us about the great effects of this opiate treatment.
So what?
So, yeah, so basically it was medication management for opiate abuse, and that's where her mind directly went. So it wasn't anything about rec therapy research, or therapeutic interventions. It was completely what the facility had just pushed on her.
Yeah, but they didn't produce that research, right? A marketing firm came in and said, there's all this research out there about this?
Yes, and their doctor came in on top of the marketing firm and said, so because this opiate med is great and we treat dual diagnosis, we're going to go ahead and focus our attention on this medication.
Weird.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
Totally not related to anything.
Nothing rec therapy related.
Not what you're talking about. Okay.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay. No, like people hear what they want to hear, I think, sometimes.
So it was just really interesting how it was pretty clear that she had just been told this information. And so that's kind of what quickly came to her when I asked her about research was this recent presentation in the doctor. But barriers for her were time, money, knowledge. She mentioned that no one prompts it and no one checks. So no one in her facility is prompting research. No one in her facility, she even mentioned, would even know if we started using more research within our interventions because nobody checks our groups. We don't have outcome measures. It was pretty sketchy. Sorry. So kind of flipping to the other side. So when I spoke with Angelina, I got to Skype with her. And then I also, which was pretty interesting, the manager of the unit wanted to Skype with us. And not just for a check-in, hi, how are you doing in Clemson kind of a thing. So Terre Haute Regional Hospital is part of a corporation that owns many hospitals. I don't remember the name of it, but basically the manager, our manager of our unit, has been asked to work with Angelina to build up the rec therapy program. So how are they going to do that? She figured out that Angelina had an interview with me and she wanted to talk to both of us about research at the same time. So the manager is a family mental health counselor. So I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but family mental health counselors really see organizations as processes. And you know this from working with family research and family development is everyone has their place and everyone is significant and important. So because she got a prompt from higher up corporate, she really wanted to sit down and talk about how rec therapy can improve, not only within their unit, but within the whole system. So they're taking our conversation and they're giving it to the big corporate guy.
Whoa.
So I just thought that was kind of interesting. It wasn't just a, hey, how are you doing? It was, hey, so you're talking about research. Now let's go big corporate with it. Like, what can I bring back to them? And what do you guys know about it? And what are your ideas? And so it was just a really big brainstorming thing. So I think kind of just bringing something different to the table is with cultures that support rec therapy, it was pretty different of a discussion that I had with those two ladies. And they,
discussion.
Hmm?
That's an exciting, direction for a discussion.
It was. And, when I was there, we did the comfort room is what we labeled it that you all had mentioned before. We did that. We've done different rec therapy based interventions. We did aromatherapy to help promote better sleep quality. We did all these great interventions. And the unit was really successful with them. And I think that of course, corporate liked that. The results came out better. So now they're just trying to go more official with how can we use rec therapy. So some of the things that we talked about with Jamie, the manager, and Angelina was they quickly identified that our rec therapy assessment was an in-house assessment, and Jamie wasn't even aware of standardized assessments. So that's kind of where they're starting, is how can we bring in more standardized rec therapy assessments so we can gain outcome measures. So it was a neat conversation.
Over here. Gosh.
Sorry, that was just kind of neat. So I just feel like if you have the right culture and you really bring the message across, and this is years in the making. I worked at this facility for 7 years, so this is definitely years in the making. But I think that if you can get the right message across to the right people, it's a cool thing.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't happen instantaneously. It takes time to build it. But then you hear things like a practicing entry-level rec therapist doesn't know that there is such a thing as a standardized assessment. And that's your assessment class, your sophomore year, junior year, or something like that. Okay. All right. Good job. One more. Who do we have? Shannon. No. Yeah. Shannon. Okay, go.
Okay, so I interviewed my coworkers, because Tennessee doesn't really have that many recreational therapists or rec therapy in Nashville specifically. So I work at the Nashville campus, but my 2 coworkers work at the Murfreesboro campus. So it's like in relation to, I'm from North Carolina, so my geographical, it's like from, if I worked at Raleigh and they worked at Greensboro, like we're an hour apart from each other. We function at 2 different speeds, basically. So Nashville's a lot more of a faster paced hospital. We actually kind of act like a real hospital, and Murfreesboro is kind of like a slower, good old southern town. Like it's going to happen when it happens, kind of a hospital. So with that being said, the first person that I interviewed was one of my coworkers. Her name's Mary. She's about 55, 60 years old. She went to none of them have masters. It's just CTRS. Mary went to Middle Tennessee State University, which is called MTSU here. That program no longer exists. It was shut down, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. I'm not sure why it was shut down, but she came from that kind of an environment. She doesn't do research. She's about to retire. She's kind of in that retirement zone. She doesn't really care very much for working. She's kind of just doing it just to do it, just to cash in her retirement plan. Because in the government, you have to have age and years in order to retire, and she just doesn't have the age yet. So she's kind of just coasting, is what I like to say. So she works on hospice. She works on hospice. She does card games. She plays chess. She does what an assistant does, not what a rec therapist does. I don't necessarily agree with her on a lot of stuff, but that's okay. She did not ever think about research. That wasn't in her repertoire. I guess at MTSU they don't teach about research. They never taught about it. So it's kind of a different teaching than what I learned at Western Carolina. When I asked her, if you could do it all over again, would you do it? Would you try different things? Would you try new things? What would you want to do? She just kind of shrugged her shoulders and said it was fine. Like she just lived her rec therapy life the way that she wanted to, and she was just content with it. So it's kind of like the pattern that you see in the government is that right now there's a shift. So in the next 5 years, about 75 to 80% of the VA system will be retired. And that's good because most of the people are like Mary and they need to be gone because it's not beneficial what they're doing. They're just kind of just sitting there. On the opposite hand, my coworker, Sharon, is kind of like the same person of me. So she works with outpatients, so we filter in the same veterans. She's more focused on relaxation and guided imagery and Tai Chi. She really loves Tai Chi. She's actually paired up with University of Chattanooga. University of Chattanooga. And they're doing a Tai Chi research, and they started the program at the Tennessee Valley Healthcare System. So they're kind of getting news on that. And then she also does this group called Operation Song, which is a songwriting group for veterans who have PTSD. And so they've done stuff like that, but it's not like research because she's never going to write anything on it. She's never going to do any assessments on it. She just kind of does it, proves that, hey, this is the success rate. This is not the success rate. These are what we've seen, but she doesn't really have anything written up or, that someone can read in an evidence-based article. And Sharon is also 5 to 6 years from retirement, so she's not going to do that. She says she's not going to worry about that. She's got too much on her plate. Sharon does go to conferences, and that's her version of learning about research and going on and what's happening in the world. I will say since I came on board, she's a little bit more like, okay, well, let's go look at some evidence-based articles and research on it, and been more proactive in that sort. But after that, that's probably where she's going to lie. She's not going to go up any further with research. She's not going to develop it. She's a great rec therapist. She does really awesome stuff, so I don't diss on that. But yeah, I'm the youngest by 40 years in my department, and I'm 26. So lots of my coworkers are from that age and era that they just don't, I mean, it's not something that they learned and they're not into it. And all of them, actually all but 2 have came from the MTSU program that is no more. So I really wonder what was the reason as to why the program shut down.
So to be fair to our other generations of rec therapists, our current generations are also not necessarily learning the rec therapy or the research skill either. So this is a pervasive issue throughout the history of our education, you know, of future practitioners. And I think like what is glaring out of listening to all 13 of you guys talk about this is that we have not done a good job of teaching people how to do this. Not at all. Not in past generations, not in current generations yet. Well, and so there's that side of it in terms of preparing the future, our current and future practitioners. But then on top of it, administrators, whether they're rec therapists themselves or, you know, hospital administrators or whatever, they don't know that that's part of our skill expectation either. So they don't require it. They don't ask it of us. They don't check in on us. They don't do anything, right? So it's like this weird symbiotic relationship of dysfunctional relationship concerning research. We don't know how to do it. You don't really care if we do it or not. You don't check, nothing. Okay, then it just is what it is. And I'll get around to it if I get around to it and I'm not really motivated or whatever. It's like this perfect, perfect storm of not awesomeness.
I have like this random idea for trying to incorporate research into undergrad, and obviously it would have to be taught in one of the classes, but I feel like it should be like an NCTRC requirement for an internship to do like a mini type, I don't know, of research that, I mean, it's not anything that has to be published, but just to like learn the process of doing it. And then like that in turn could teach the bachelor degree level people how to do it and then carry that over versus talking about it once in class.
Well, that's a really good idea. And just to clarify, like all research doesn't have to be published. I mean, that's where it's going to have the most use or the wider profession benefit to the broader profession. At the base level, research can just be used in-house to demonstrate outcomes, justify our existence. You know, when we're talking about an interdisciplinary thing where, well, what does a rec therapist do and type of a thing. So it doesn't always have to, you know, go all the way to publication. I mean, I think at the bare minimum for in-house stuff, you'd have to generate some type of a report or summary for your administrators, but yeah, it doesn't have to
I was going to say, I was thinking of something pretty basic, like just tracking like participation for your programs and seeing like, hey, are these actually good programs? Like how many people are participating and should we change, like something simple like that, where you can do like an easy analysis based on numbers.
Sure.
Like
super simple.
Yeah, but I also have to say like the kids who went to Western, like I think Claire and Jake and maybe 1 or 2 of us, we all did do that. Like that was part of our internship, is that you had to do an evidence-based research. You had to go through all the articles. You had to create, like I had to create an evidence-based intervention and then track it. And then I did my pre and my post assessment data, and then I compared and contrast, and then I had to present like in front of my internship like staff. So I think it's based off of university, to be truthfully honest.
Yeah.
For example, it was a university internship requirement, but I think probably what you're suggesting
like
that
NCTRC. Yeah,
because if it's a, you know, if NCTRC doesn't dictate what the experience is, the universities decide what that experience is. So Western is going above and beyond and requiring that, you know, Western, but maybe I think it's a great idea. I don't know how you could influence NCTRC to change.
No idea. It was just a random thought, but I feel like it would be,
And yes, I agree. We have to front load that knowledge first in a class somewhere and then reinforce, just like we do with everything else about rec therapy, right? You get taught the skill in class somewhere, and then you go out on the internship and you get to do it.
Yeah.
So somehow we'd have to set that up.
Could you do it with the accreditation? Like since programs want to be accredited, can they not like require it as an accreditation thing? Like if your program doesn't require students to do that, then you're not going to get accredited? Because I thought with the curriculum, they had to have, like, that's why it's accredited. So across the line, like Western Carolina, ECU, Clemson, like we're all the same curriculum. You're going to learn about the same stuff. It may be taught differently, but you have to have like a certain amount. So
Yes,
I
but
feel like
every
that
program-
could be the way.
Yeah, accreditation would tighten up a lot of these things, but accreditation is varied across the board, right? There's CART accreditation, which is the only rec therapy education accreditation program, and there are only a handful, I think 7 out of all existing rec therapy education programs at every level. There's only 7 that have CART accreditation, and CART is new. But you know, they dictate what that curriculum needs to look like. And if we could, again, this is where people in our profession really disagree philosophically, and some of them, you know, it gets kind of heated about it in terms of this accreditation. Some don't agree with CART standards for education, and so they don't want to have that. And so they go with the NRPA accreditation standards, which is very different than it's not rec therapy focused at all. So yeah, it's not an easy fix in terms of how to, I mean, I say it like it is, oh, just put a research class into undergrad, you know, but something's got to give. Something will have to be taken out in order to add something in, whether that's, you know, the general rec core classes or just your gen ed classes. I mean, the university dictates that. So it's not like we can say like, we'll drop English 101, you know, type of a thing. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember where we were going with this. Anyways, it's not an easy fix, but clearly this is an issue, kind of like an underlying issue. And every time I do this, these are kind of the same things from year to year, and it heats me up every year. Maybe, hopefully, eventually these themes will change. But okay, so good job. I hope everybody enjoyed that experience of being able to talk to some rec therapists out in the field and get some insight into research, what's happening, what's not happening, why, etc. And I hope that if not after today, but for sure the semester as a whole, you guys are all standing on the soapbox with me. And every semester I'll produce 15 to 20 more people who are on the soapbox with me. And eventually there will be enough of us out there yelling about this that maybe we as a collective group, we have this knowledge now. And I really do hope that those of you who are practicing, those who are going to go back into practice, that you won't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Now you know, right? The burden is on you because you have the knowledge. So dun, 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 I just put that back on you. I'm going to check in 10 years and see if you're doing research. I will send future students in this class to you to do the interviews. And if they come back and say, Gina said she doesn't do research because she's about to retire and she doesn't think it's worth it, I will retroactively change your grade. Take away the degree. Okay, my kids are going crazy in the bedroom because they want to come out, and they're sleeping on a pull-out couch, which I think is the coolest thing in the world, to sleep on the pull-out couch in the hotel room. And so they're like banging on the door to come out. So I think we're going to call it a night. Next week, no class, Thanksgiving. Have a great week, and then I'll see you the week after that. Bye, everybody.
Jasmine, I have a quick question real quick.
Yep. Oh, you were lucky. I just about hit end.